An MLS coach is moving to Europe. We dive into USL's TrophyGate situation, and we hear from Jonathan Tannenwald on the latest in Philadelphia. That and more on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, where we dot the map of the American soccer landscape. My name, Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and to my side, my partner, my co-host, my fellow map dotter, Jason Davis, radio soccer. How you feeling?
Sound like a slur of some kind? You dot mapper, map daughter. I did it backwards. I think it's worse the other way. You map daughter. That's what it is. You map daughter. No, I'm glad that we're map daughters together, Rob. And hopefully everybody in the chat, there's good morning to Chris. Shout out to our ultras. Good morning to Chris. Good morning to Michael. Hopefully our ultras are enjoying their membership to the channel, to being part of the map daughters. I don't know if that's what we want to call them. Were they're ultras? Maybe. Maybe not.
We're workshopping that. We're workshopping that.
I do need to dot the map that is our map of our ultras. I know I'm a little bit behind. I think we've got an extra Detroit. We got a more Michigan. Is that what we
Michigan
need? I thought it was pure Michigan. It's more Michigan in our lives. But that's okay. We got more Michigan. We got a couple others to throw in there as well. So I'm excited for that. If you haven't become an MK Ultra already, do it. Join the Discord channel. The Discord server, rather. Be part of the discussion. Be here with your comments. Shout out to Sluggo. What's up, Sluggo?
And shout out, we got Mad Pup out in the UK tuning in. We do have relevant news to the Scottish viewer.
Well, okay, let's not waste any more time then. I'm pumping us up. I'm trying to get more ultras, but we do have news to get to. So let's dive straight in, Rob. You set us up.
Yeah, so I was asked the other day, with the seasons wrapping up, what will you talk about all winter? And there is no shortage of news. American soccer keeping us well fed with controversies, drama, and intrigue. And we'll get to that. Wilfried Nancy, all but signed for Celtic. DCFC getting stadium approval news. Ronaldo, who would have thought, gets a little bit of reprieve ahead of the World Cup next year with his suspension.
Yeah.
And we're also going to dip into the controversies in Philadelphia with special guest Jonathan Tannenwald, friend of the show. And we're going to wrap it all up at the end of the episode today and dip into USL's TrophyGate, the brewing saga about the lack of trophy presentation for their champions of their marquee league. So we'll dip into that. So busy show on the way. If you aren't already, hit the subscribe button. If you want to knock it up a notch of your support, become an MK Ultra. All right, you ready to rock?
Let's go.
All right, let's kick the long balls here on Wednesday's jam-packed episode of Morning Kickaround. As we wake up here on Wednesday, February 26th, here on Morning Kickaround, we got everything except for the "here we go" statement from Fabrizio Romano regarding Columbus Crew head coach Wilfried Nancy, rumored and knocking on the door of the one of the top jobs in Celtic.
Yeah, this is being reported as imminent. So Fabrizio Romano normally gives us a "here we go" when things are signed and sealed. We don't have a "here we go." We have an imminent. Is that the last stage before a "here we go"? Do you know the levels of fab, or are you? I'm not up to speed on my fab levels. So
yeah, I think he hedges his bets a lot more than he used to, because there was a while where he had 100% record. So "here we go" was bang on, but after a couple have gone off, he hedges a little bit and he says things like imminent and on the doorstep and whatnot. But so saying this, so if this does in fact happen, how important is it for Wilfried Nancy to be a successful Celtic coach?
Let's with acknowledging our friend from Scotland, and normally you have to be an ultra to get on screen, but we're going to let Mad Pup be in here because from Scotland. I don't know if Mad Pup is a Celtic fan or not, but let's just thumbnail sketch what this means, what kind of coach Wilfried Nancy is, and what he might bring to Celtic as they sort of scramble to figure out the next move after Brendan Rodgers walked off the job or left, whatever his circumstance. Martin O'Neill, how old is Martin O'Neill at this point? I'm seeing that Ali McCoist was surprised to see that they were going to hire somebody now and not just let Martin O'Neill kind of see out the season. And maybe Martin O'Neill didn't want to. I don't know all of the scuttle there. But Wilfried Nancy is extremely celebrated in American soccer circles for what he brought to the Columbus Crew. And I think that if you are a Celtic fan, you should be thrilled by this move. Like, I honestly think that this is an excellent choice for a club like Celtic. He is an up-and-coming manager in the sense that he obviously doesn't have a European profile because he came here to America, first to Canada, now to the United States to ply his trade. But he is a manager known for having a progressive mindset when it comes to what you do with the ball, how you use the ball, interpositional exchange, things like that, Rob. Like, these are the things that interchange between positions and how players move in an attempt to exploit space. If you're a Celtic fan, that's what you're getting. That's what I think you should be excited about.
Yeah, the interpositional, the freedom of positioning was definitely something that really stands out. I mean, for example, in Montreal, his first MLS job, literally nothing going on there, no players of note, no success in recent memory, and he turned them into a contender. Montreal just wasn't clever enough or didn't have the resources to keep him, and he went to Columbus Crew and pretty much had borderline unprecedented success with a team who had a couple players, but he kind of changed the game. A bunch of players that playing out of position. He basically invented roles for them. It was an amoeba sort of a thing.
Yeah.
He had players all over the field, no recognized defenders defending. It was really, for MLS tactics, a level above.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that you can directly connect Couto Hernandez landing at Real Betis to what Wilfried Nancy did with him in Columbus. You can absolutely connect Max Arfsten and his rise in the U.S. men's national team to what Wilfried Nancy did with him in Columbus as a wingback. Sean Zawadzki got called up to the U.S. men's national team. I mean, that says more. Not that he's a bad player. I'm not saying that Sean Zawadzki is a bad player, but he's not a player anybody had on their U.S. men's national team bingo card. And Wilfried Nancy put him in a position as a defender and a midfielder, because he played both under Nancy, to get recognized by Mauricio Pochettino as a player who should get a call to play for his country. That's saying a lot. So I think, he benefited from having Darlington Nagbe in his team. He had Aiden Morris. Aiden Morris moved on to Middlesbrough, in part because of what Wilfried Nancy was able to do for him. So I think you can just see, like, that's a good measure of a coach, is players who played for him. Where are they after a year or two or three? And in this case, a number of players have moved on to higher levels, gotten moves, gotten opportunities with national teams. I think, again, that is a good reflection of Wilfried Nancy, who is, by the way, I'm seeing that Mad Pup is a Rangers fan. So not maybe here to scout the opposition's new hire rather than enjoy what's happening. But there is that question, Rob. You brought it up. I don't want to forget about it. Is it important for Wilfried Nancy to succeed at Celtic for the reputation of Major League Soccer? Because it's always a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? It's like when Lionel Messi comes to MLS. If Lionel Messi dominates MLS, well, MLS isn't very good. Look how old Lionel Messi is. That's terrible league. If he doesn't dominate MLS, it's just because he's old, not because MLS is a decent league. So, obviously in this case, Messi is still good and he's still dominating. I don't know how people view that necessarily, and I don't really care, but there will be a discussion about this. And I do think that when it comes to American soccer, and Wilfried Nancy is not American, let's be very clear about that. And I think the press in Scotland,
the foreign press are definitely highliling that he's not
American.
They're
highlighting his Frenchness, rather than his American roots or his North American roots. But he will be a reflection on MLS because he made his bones as a coach in this league, as a manager in this league. And this is the last frontier, right? This is the glass ceiling that MLS still has, that American soccer still has. We send players all over the world and they thrive. That's not an issue. I think commercially, stadiums, facilities, all that stuff, Major League Soccer has gone way beyond what we could have expected 20 years ago. What we haven't yet seen is MLS coaches move on from Major League Soccer and start to make inroads in big European leagues or in clubs with deep history and respect around the world. We had Bob Bradley, didn't go so well at Swansea. We had Jesse Marsch, fine in Austria, terrible in Germany, not so great in England. So is there somebody else? And again, those guys were American. And in this case, and look, I guess you could say Patrick Vieira, who was in NYCFC and went over to France. There's just, man, I don't know.
Veljko Paunovic, he did so-so.
Veljko Paunovic, yeah, he did so-so in MLS, and now it was Mexico. I don't know. I don't know how that might be impacted by Wilfried Nancy's success or failure at Celtic.
Looking at the headlines right now, waking up to this, there's, like you said, Ally McCoy surprised that Nancy moved, thought they were going to stay with Martin O'Neill, the 73-year-old, per our commenter. Ex-Celtic player and pundit suggest Nancy hire should be delayed. Romano gives Nancy heads up, and then incoming Celtic boss might bring in the Palestinian number 9, which is a Columbus Crew player. So a mixed reception so far before Wilfried Nancy's proposed or hypothetical hire here. They're also saying that in some of these foreign headlines that they believe Nancy will be unveiled and announced officially next week. Also notable, coach. Oh, the finger of power.
Okay, you're bringing. I'm sorry. It's just my brain. Now, obviously, the question is, what does Columbus do? Where does Columbus turn? And I have not yet seen any names kind of in the mix, but that's a big thing. And they have this reputation, obviously Caleb Porter ended poorly, but he won a title there. Wilfried Nancy wins a title there, turns them into the darlings of MLS in terms of how they play. Is there somebody else? Can they find the next guy?
It's definitely a new year in Columbus. No, Darlington Nagbe, no coach, no Cucho, no Aiden Morris. So a lot of that core that really wowed the MLS no longer there in Columbus, Ohio. Moving along to other news, Detroit City Football Club received unanimous city council approval for Alumnify Field and affordable housing projects. So the countdown is on now. Not the old hospital that's on that site hasn't been knocked down. They were seeking more approval, like we're going to get into here. So a lot of work to do. And the sales department is advertising 2026 as the final season at Keyworth. So a lot to do between knocking a building down, building a whole new stadium in about, just over a year. So we'll see if that happens.
No, just over a year. 2026, right? Okay, it's 2027 launch for this stadium. I understand now. Here's the headline from the USL Championship.com item. Obviously, this is state media, so keep that in mind, right? This is going through the filter of people who want to celebrate this as a big step forward. But they talk about the incentives approved by the city council, and a state board will provide development incentives, the bulk of which would come from a $74.2 million brownfield tax capture over the next 30 years to help underwrite demolition of the hospital site, the cleanup, as well as construction of a parking deck and an apartment building of all affordable units. So we have a high housing crisis in America, so it's hard for me to be too negative about anything that involves affordable housing. Right. This is roughly, though, that $80 million that we heard about that got people a little upset. Detroit City said we're privately funding and financing this stadium, and then we heard word about these tax breaks, and people went, "Oh, what? They're not actually privately funding this." It's a mix. It's a mix of those things, right? It is not just straight up they're paying for every single thing. There is some incentives being thrown their way, and again, the problem is you won't know if this is worth it for the city of Detroit until well down the line. But it does say the privately owned stadium, again from the USL, will be the only professional sports stadium to contribute to the city's tax base from the very beginning. Now, I don't know what that means in the city of Detroit. That means in the entirety of America. What are we talking about here, Rob? Well, I don't really quite understand. I guess it's because it's privately funded, but there's some incentives. They're going to be paying taxes even as they're taking some tax breaks. It's very confusing to me.
Yeah, it is on another level of layered complications and technical financial book making is that, I mean, it's definitely out of my wheelhouse. Didn't make it past pre-trigonometry in my math classes. So figuring out tax bases and all of that stuff is a little bit beyond me, but you've just put on screen the highlights, a 12-year community benefits agreement. So
it's a lot
part
here.
of this, yeah, I was going to say, so with, I'd say Detroit City FC, while they're doing the stadium thing, are doing it their own way with talking about, contributing to the tax base and then baking in the affordable housing, because I've said on the show before, the other major league stadiums in Detroit, I know specifically Little Caesars where Red Wings and Pistons play, there was a whole bunch of affordable housing that was baked into their package with the city, or the state rather, that was, they were relieved of that requirement once the stadium was built. So it'll be interesting. That'll be a make or break difference if those affordable housing units come to fruition.
Talk is cheap. Words are cheap. They're easy to put out there and make a big deal about all of these incentives in the community benefits agreement and all that stuff. But it's the follow through that matters, right? And there are lots of places, lots of stadiums that have been built where there's supposed to be something attached to it, and it doesn't get done. And the fans or the people, the city rather, are still like, what's going on? Now let's look at these as fast as we can individually, because there's a lot. So
all right, we want to go back and forth between each other on these bullet points here. Of the 12-year community benefits agreement, which includes, I'll start off, contribute $100,000 per year to organizers that specialize in safe, habitable homes, cultural programming, and youth education programs chosen by the neighborhood council.
Okay. Again, part of this is, what kind of organization do you think Detroit City is? Because if this was a big billionaire dealing with a big city and they were taking tax breaks and a bunch of money to build a stadium because they were threatening to move their club or their franchise out of the city, you might think this is all fluff and nonsense, and they're not actually going to do any of this. Or maybe if they do, they'll do the easy ones and skip the harder ones. I tend to, and maybe I'm a little naive, but I tend to believe in the Detroit City organization. I've been talking to them over the years since they launched as an amateur outfit. So I want to believe, right? This is sort of my, we're getting up close to Christmas. I want to believe in Santa Claus. I want to believe that these are all going to be things that Detroit City follows through on. So I don't know that that's a tough one. Contribute $100,000 per year to those organizations. We got $200,000 low interest loan to support a low interest loan fund to support small businesses. All right, great. Again, I'm sure there's a ton of those in that area. I see retail space dedicated to small. I'm sorry, we were going back and forth, Rob. We were trading on this. You want to?
Yeah, why not? There's a long list. It's a long list here, and I think this third one probably falls under the easier category. But retail space dedicated to small business incubator for Detroit entrepreneurs, for pathways for the Detroit vendors to be concessionaires at the venue.
Okay, right. And again, all these things do dovetail with what we know about DCFC as an organization. What they've already done, what they've already established is their identity. Now it's a different level, and they were playing in a high school venue and all those things, but those are all good things. Give first priority to job applicants in surrounding zip codes. That one's tougher to maybe call them on if it doesn't happen the way that it should. But
are you going to ask the hot dog vendor like where he lives?
I mean, I hope somebody goes back and checks them on this stuff. I hope there's accountability. I hope there's some sort of office that's responsible for making sure that they're checking these boxes. Establish a $17 an hour minimum wage. All right. I mean, that's, we're discussing minimum wage a lot in this country. That would be good. What else we got here?
This is interesting. Provide 3,000 complimentary tickets to residents each year. So I think that's probably in an effort to get the most immediate neighbors bought into the team and the stadium, because they are moving neighborhoods. And so I think the people that already go to Keyworth will definitely migrate, but can you get that buy-in from that local neighborhood, that Southwest Latin Mexican town community?
Create a mini pitch soccer field for youth in the impact area and create a youth mentorship program for sports careers. All right. That's a thing. Again, you can be cynical about it, but a lot of teams and organizations in sports do that stuff because it's good. It not only is it good PR, obviously it's making fans, right? You're making new fans by doing that. That's a long-term investment.
50,000. Did you just read the 50,000 for cultural and artistic installations? Focus on the history of the area, Southwest Michigan Hospital.
I did not. So pay attention, Rob, because that's not what I read. thought you were doing back and forth. All right. Provide 76 affordable housing units reserved for residents earning between 40 and 80% of the area median income. Okay, that's the thing that sometimes gets left behind. Right? We talk about mixed use development all the time. What sometimes happens is a mixed use development goes up. There's a promise of affordable housing, and then, oh, actually, we're not doing any affordable housing. Every single one of these units is at 120% of market rates, that kind of thing. So hopefully that's not what's going to happen.
Create a traffic management plan. That's fine. Provide incentives for visitors, employees who use non-motorized transit to the stadium, and an improvements and beautification of the 20th Street Viaduct, which is in between this site and the Detroit's train station that recently reopened.
Right. Here's the rendering, right, as it currently exists. Remember that sometimes cost overruns and changes do happen, but if it ends up looking like this, it'll be one of the jewels of lower division soccer, maybe soccer period in America, if it does look like this, and if they follow through on all the things that they're supposed to via the community benefits agreement. So, I mean, look, you should give in order to get. It shouldn't just straight up be, well, here's a bunch of money to build a stadium on the promise of some sort of economic development that may or may not happen. And there are lots of studies that tell you that stadiums don't actually deliver the economic benefit that sometimes is claimed in the proposals, in the ask. So here we are seeing a little bit of back and forth. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope for the best, and that the stadium gets built, that it's home to some great soccer, and that the community benefits at the end.
Yeah, that list of community benefits that we just listed off, part of the $2.27 million in financial contributions coming from Detroit City FC, as they're on their way to building perhaps a beautiful soccer stadium in downtown Detroit. Long ball number 3, whose World Cup is it anyway, where the rules are made up and the points mean absolutely everything? Cristiano Ronaldo's suspended to give him the opportunity to not miss any World Cup games.
Yeah, give me the deep. There's language here that is applicable to this that is just sort of stunning. Like there's no precedent for this, as far as I'm aware. There's no. I don't think there's ever been like, well, you're supposed to get 3 games for violent conduct, and remember, he elbowed a dude in the back, like full on,
really hard,
a dude in the back.
Really
hard, elbowed a dude in the back, and yet here he is avoiding that 3-game suspension that comes with violent conduct, getting a 1-year probation. Whoever heard of probation for a red card? What are we talking about now? This announcement coincides with Cristiano Ronaldo's visit to the White House, where he attended the state dinner or whatever it was for the Saudi delegation that made a bunch of news for other reasons. And here he is with the president of the United States, Donald Trump, who is a man, if you are not aware, who Gianni Infantino very, very much wants to curry favor with. We expect, for obvious reasons, that Johnny is going to give Donald Trump a FIFA Peace Prize at the World Cup draw a week from Friday at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. He has shown himself to be, Gianni Infantino I'm talking about, to be absolutely craven in his desire to make Trump feel special and to get Trump's blessing and to all these things. And I'm not doing rocket science to connect these dots. If Donald Trump met Cristiano Ronaldo and came away impressed or liked him, or Ronaldo did the things that make Trump like somebody, or Ronaldo's just a famous guy, and sometimes Trump likes to curry favor with famous guys, and he told Johnny, why is this guy going to miss the World Cup? Or I heard he was going to miss the World Cup, or he shouldn't miss the World Cup. Do we put it past FIFA to say, well, let's massage the rules so that Ronaldo can play?
Yeah, that's definitely an elbow. Like Ronaldo told him, like, oh, I might miss the first game. And there's like an elbow into the ribs of Infantino from Trump. It's like, this famous, handsome guy, he needs some help here. We need him in our American World Cup. But going to the FIFA statement.
He has how many followers on Instagram? He's got to play.
Yeah, he's a star. You can't miss it. But the FIFA Disciplinary Committee has imposed a 3-match ban. This is when the elbow happened in Ireland. The first of the 3 matches was served in the encounter, Portugal versus Armenia, on the 16th of November. And it says in line with Article 27 of FIFA Disciplinary Code, the serving of the 2 remaining matches has been suspended under a 1-year probation period. If Cristiano Ronaldo commits another infringement of a similar nature and gravity during the probationary period, the suspension set out in the decision shall be deemed automatically revoked, and the remaining 2 matches must be served immediately at the next official matches of the Portuguese representative team. This is without prejudice to any additional sanctions imposed to the infringement. The 3-match suspension is subject to appeal to the FIFA Appeal Committee. So, long story short, we're letting them off the hook for missing World Cup games.
You just wonder if it was anybody else.
Yeah. This question is like, there are other people that got red cards in that last window. Let's see what happens with them, right?
Well, I mean, look, and it's not like if you got a red card for going in late on a challenge, and the FIFA disciplinary committee went, that was a pretty aggressive challenge, and by per our statutes, you're going to get a 3-game suspension. Then would there be a question of suspending it if that player was, I mean, even a star, but not on Ronaldo's level? And again, maybe the White House visit had nothing to do with it. But FIFA has given us no reason. Gianni Infantino have given us no reason to take them seriously, to think that they would do the right thing, to imagine that this was done above board, that this is on the up and up, that this is exactly what any other player would get if another player did what Cristiano Ronaldo did in that match. I'm just, it's a yet another a long line of things that have happened ahead of this World Cup that just drag your enthusiasm level down, that just make you a little less excited for a World Cup on American soil.
We got some messages of discouragement coming in from the ultras here.
I mean, I see that there's some people saying, hey, boycott the tournament, go to a watch party. I think that may actually be the better experience anyway. But I will also point out, this is getting a little mention, I think, in some quarters. I didn't realize Cristiano Ronaldo came to the United States because, and I know that there was some mitigation of the charges, but the man was charged with a crime, a significant sexual assault crime in Las Vegas from an incident that happened 15 years ago, whatever it was. We're just like, cool, dude. Like, come on over. Come to the White House. Be a special guest of the President of the United States at this event.
I thought ICE agents were looking for foreign criminals. Like they that's the kind of people that they didn't want into the country. Weird. I saw a misspelling from a commenter, but it brought up a funny thought in my head for a soccer nickname for Trump could be Kanklich, if he was like a Eastern European soccer player, Kanklich. But never mind. That's a bit of a tangent over there. But interesting that Ronaldo's suspension has been suspended.
Yeah. It's a painful development, to say the least.
But it's not surprising.
Just in the sense, not surprising. Just in the sense that, again, it makes it reminds you, like, the thing that FIFA cannot help doing is reminding us as fans that we have to make these difficult decisions around our fandom in regards to things like the World Cup. Like, that's the painful, like, I want to be a fan, and I will go a long way. I'll go to lengths to make sure that I can access my, like, I'm going to let a lot slide, but they keep pushing the boundaries. They keep pushing the envelope. They keep making me have to make more, like, let more things slide. And I don't know eventually if I'll hit a breaking point or not, Rob. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'm just in, and maybe FIFA, that's what FIFA knows. FIFA knows that it does not matter what they do. They can exploit everybody. They can get in bed with dictators. They can steal money effectively. In fact, I saw this, and this is not part and parcel of the story today, other than to say that it is, again, from a FIFA perspective, extremely troubling. Another thing that you can add to the list of things that FIFA has done that are just like, what? Tariq Panja of the New York Times put this on Blue Sky yesterday. FIFA and Saudi Arabia announce a joint, I guess it does tie into the Trump visit and all that. FIFA and Saudi Arabia announce a joint $1 billion fund for infrastructure for FIFA members. Unclear why this is needed. FIFA already distributes huge sums to FAs. Oversight of that existing spending is mixed. So again, why would we sit here and think that they're going to do good things with this money and only good things with this money? That it won't end up in some people's pockets and bank accounts that maybe it shouldn't go to. Why would we believe that?
Yeah, you don't even have to be like a paranoid person to think that, yep, that's going to get pilfered at all. I mean, there's just such a track record, and just the brazen corruption is really getting overwhelming. You're talking about what will it take? I mean, growing up and, over the last 20 years, obviously the rising commercialization of the game was always, you had to straddle and get your mind past. But now we're, talking to dictators.
I talked about this. It used to be with Sepp Blatter, the old way of like paper bags full of money, that you knew it was going on. You knew Jack Warner was stealing, basically. You knew that was happening. Chuck Blazer was stealing. You knew that. They were slush funding their way around the world and living on a soccer fans' dimes, basically, to do what they wanted to do with their rascals in their apartments for their cats, and Jack Warner doing his things down in Trinidad. But at least it was like, we're pretending like it's not happening. Like they were like, we're going to hide it. We don't want people to know that we're stealing. We're going to at least pretend. Now it's just straight up out in the open. Again, as is rightfully said, but from Chris, this is effectively Saudi Arabia paying off FIFA for the World Cup that's coming to Saudi Arabia. And I'm looking at a picture here from the announcement from FIFA.com about this fund. In the announcement, Carlos Cordero, former president of U.S. Soccer.
He's always lurking. He's always lurking.
It is what it is. All right, let's. I'm getting. We're not gonna have a pick me up with the next topic, but we do have to move on.
Yeah, heavy stuff here the day before Thanksgiving. But thanks for being along, and subscribe as we're going here on the live show. Past 5,000 subscribers. Let's keep that number ticking up. And if you'd like to support at a higher level, MK Ultras, just a couple bucks a month, access to priority videos, bonus content, access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server, and priority commenting on screen for these live streams. All right, we got a guest coming up. We are going to dig into some of the controversies in Philadelphia. We're digging into today's hot topic with Jonathan Tannenwald up next here on Morning Kickaround. Today's hot topic here on Morning Kickaround, we're going to zoom in on Philadelphia for a number of reasons. They are the top team out of the MLS playoffs, and they are without one of their executives due to a scathing investigation that was published, or a report of an investigation last week. To help us out here in Philadelphia, and from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Jonathan Tannenwald, in front of the show. Welcome aboard on Morning Kickaround here, sir.
Thank you. I'm not normally on in the morning, Jason. So
I know. You're usually a nighttime guy when you talk to me on these things. So I do appreciate you making some time for us, Mr. Tannenwald. As Rob was framing up there, this is all about what's going down with the Philadelphia Union and Ernst Tanner. Pablo Maurer on The Guardian reporting Ernst Tanner, kind of a rotten guy sometimes in the past. And basically what I'm to understand is that MLS investigated, then The Guardian went back and said, we found some stuff that maybe you didn't know about. And MLS was like, okay, we'll reopen this investigation. Where do things stand right now with Ernst Tanner and Philadelphia?
That's where things stand. Everybody's just waiting for a conclusion, with the slight problem that the union's roster decisions are due today, and there's no sporting director to formally announce them. My understanding is that they were made before Ernst Tanner was placed on administrative leave. So whatever was known, and a lot of the stuff was sort of fairly obvious in terms of what was coming down the pike anyway. But it's an odd time. It's a very odd time, and it's an unsavory way for the year to end on top of the team losing to New York the way it did.
Yeah, so definitely an interesting time after such a successful regular season, ending definitely in an unexpected way. But part of the reporting was it sounded like this behavior that has Ernst Tanner on leave was over a long period of time. Was this behavior something that was kind of out in the open, that it was just like, oh, that's just Ernst, but it just eventually the wrong people were the ones that were victim of this language and this these interactions that came out into the reporting?
I wouldn't say it was out in the open. I know more than enough people who were pretty surprised, who did not know and were surprised. I know people who did know, but I would not say it was out in the open. And one of the things that I think Pablo did a good job of detailing was that there was sort of an omerta around a lot of this stuff, that people were afraid to talk about it, not only because of internal retribution, but because of fear that they wouldn't be able to get jobs elsewhere around the league. And that's a bigger problem than just one club, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds like a cultural problem. No, look, this is not new to sports. It is something I think, even MLS has had to deal with. We still don't know what Bruce Arena did, for example. There's talk that it is in this realm, although I don't think it was a long-term thing with Bruce. It was one thing that blew up with a couple of individuals. But MLS has had to deal with these things on occasion. How do you sort of view their handling of all of this? Again, sort of with that acknowledgement that there was an investigation, MLS basically closed it, and now they've sort of been forced to reopen it because of the investigating, the reporting done by a third party, by a journalistic enterprise.
Can I take that in the direction of Bruce Arena for just a moment?
You can, absolutely you can.
I know a lot of people who are very insistent on wanting to know what he did, or believing that they know what he did, and I think some of it has to do with the desire to exonerate him so that he can go back to coaching New England, because the Revolution won when he coached them.
Okay. All right.
And I don't really like that.
I look, again, all we can do is sort of educated guesses about what that was. I mean, I do think there was an interpersonal conflict ultimately that ended his time there, because whatever, we don't have to relitigate Richie Williams versus Bruce Arena. But I don't think it doesn't take a lot to imagine that maybe an old school guy like Bruce said something that was sort of out of step with the way people want their workplace environments to be. And if Ernst Tanner is a repeat offender, now you said there might have been omerta here, but if he's a repeat offender, then this becomes an issue where it's not just one incident, on field, racial epithet kind of thing, and you deal with it. This now is, hey, you've got a culture issue in Philly, and if there are people saying in the Union organization, I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't think I was going to get a job anywhere else, now MLS has a bigger issue about the perception of the culture across the league.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that may ultimately be part of why Tanner goes if he goes. I'm not allowed professionally, contractually to call for his head, and I'll probably be sued if I do. I understand that. But I think the circumstances are, if the league investigation proves what is alleged, I think it's going to be hard for him to keep his job, because I think that the charge of bringing the league into disrepute is going to be pretty strong at that point. And that's something where the league can say this has to happen. But fixing that culture, I know more than enough other people around MLS who are somewhat unsavory characters. I think we all do. I've said many times over the years, Jason, that soccer is the Star Wars cantina. And I don't just mean that because of the music. I mean it because everybody's a bounty hunter.
Well, again, I think this is, let's be fair, not fair. It shouldn't be like this anywhere. That's a statement we can all agree to. But this is sports, unfortunately, especially men's sports. Although, again, the NWSL has had to deal with their own issues in terms of culture and treatment of actions, behavior of people in power and that power imbalance. And this becomes that thing of, and I think this is true of in any business. If you succeed, you get away with more. But it's very much tied to wins and losses in sports. And as long as you are winning, and in the case of Ernst Tanner, it's also tied to how much money he's brought the club via developing players and selling them on. So, I mean, this is a cash cow. This is the golden goose. So what is the Union's response to this been, if anything?
And not much yet. And I don't think there will be a response until there's a verdict from the league. There are a lot of lawyers involved with this already. And I know, Jason, that lawsuits in soccer are your favorite thing to talk about.
Love a good lawsuit. Yeah. Pick up the bat phone.
Look, I realize I'm trying to be a little bit humorous with a very serious subject that should not be joked about. I don't think there's going to be a resolution or much concrete until the league has finished its investigation. I've heard that might take a while. I don't know why. I am preparing for the professional cynic in me is preparing for the news to drop either next week, because the World Cup draw is next week and people's attention will be elsewhere, or as of about December 13th when I leave for vacation sometime after.
So this all comes at a time when they're talking about relaxing the Rooney Rule as far as hiring or practices for minority coaches. And then obviously there's a cultural issue, but that stems like outside of the club and then league wide. You said a lot of people knew about it, fear of retribution. There's closed circles in the positions of power in the league. And then we've seen in other sports in those places where there's only a few powerful positions and the circle of people that might get a job is pretty small. So if you step on some toes, that might get you outside of that circle for rehire ability. But it makes me also think on some of the other surprises that didn't quite make sense at the time. But is there any sense that maybe Jim Curtin's sudden step back from Philadelphia Union could be connected to Ernst Tanner's culture that he put out there in Philadelphia?
I'm not going to level that accusation. That is something that I don't know, would not be able to prove, and don't want to insinuate.
Okay.
I think there were footballing reasons for that decision. Whether or not there were others is a different question that I don't know the answer to, but I do think there were footballing reasons to do it, and I think that a first-year manager coming in and winning the Supporters' Shield sort of proves that part of it fairly correct. And also, as I've said all year, the one thing that Bradley Carnell, there's two things that Bradley Carnell does any differently from Jim Curtin. One, they switch their tactics a little bit in terms of how the midfield is laid out. And the other is that Jim Curtin always he stuck with his guys a lot and often did not use all of his substitutions in games. Bradley Carnell used all 5 substitutions every game, and that's how he kept his guys fresh down the stretch. Those are footballing reasons.
Sure.
If there are others, I don't know them, and I don't want to go down a road where I don't have information. The one thing I will say, and I'm not going to dispute anything that Pablo wrote. I'm not in the position to, and I know him. I know his editors. I think Jason, Robert, all of us know Pablo and a lot of the people at the Guardian and the U.S. staff at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Something that Pablo wrote, that among the many things that Pablo wrote that piqued my interest. In its initial investigation into the allegations against Tanner, MLS reached out to 13 potential interview subjects, promising them anonymity if needed. 8 of those 13 subjects, who the Guardian understands to be current and former players understands to be current and former players and employees of the Philadelphia Union, chose to speak with the league. I'm not faulting Pablo here. I'm faulting somebody who, if I was one of those 8 people, I'm not sure I'd want that detail out, because now everybody's running around saying who are
trying to figure them out. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, that's that culture of fear that if I say something, I will suffer rather than the person who actually did the bad thing will suffer.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy when this stuff happens to point fingers and say the league did bad or the club did bad or something like that. Or the culture. Now, the culture doesn't have a face, right? There's not an individual person you can blame that on, but everybody wants to kind of find somebody to blame here. And I guess the question I would have, and I know there are people who are paid a lot of money to try to figure out how to make this work, John, but I guess the question I would have is, can we reason out what the right way for the league to make sure this doesn't happen? Like, these things don't happen in general. Not that this doesn't happen again, that there's a better culture, that there isn't a culture of, I can't say anything lest I be fired, lest I not get a job, lest I be blackballed. No, that should not be the way, right? Again, the NWSL had to reckon with the fact that there was a culture of silence around sexual abuse within its ranks. I mean, that, and they're still doing it, I think, right? So what can MLS do in the aftermath of this, and knowing that there are probably things that happen that don't get reported, to create an environment where people can say, all right, this sucks. We whatever it is about wins and losses, that doesn't justify this behavior.
I think the almost exact phrase, whatever the wins and losses, that doesn't justify this behavior, probably needs to come from the commissioner. And I'm not saying that the commissioner has to do the day-to-day work of that every day, but I think that kind of message needs to come from pretty high up and on a consistent basis, and go from there. I am certain that there are a lot of people at the league office who abhor this kind of conduct, but the message needs to come down that we're not having it. And that's, as I say, that's going to come down from pretty high up.
So curious to see if that does in fact happen. Like I said, at a time when kind of some of the DEI and some of the sort of practices to try to stem the sort of behavior is being scaled back. It'll be interesting how much like accountability outside of like a press release would happen.
We know why it's being scaled back.
Sure.
And in that regard, I've said this to a lot of people, and I've said it about the NWSL too, and I've certainly said it about the U.S. Soccer Federation a few times, and they're the ones probably in the most danger here of landing in the line of fire of the White House.
Yep.
That hasn't happened much at all so far this year, since about January 20th or so, whatever the date was. That hasn't happened very much.
That's an interesting point. Does the White House's opinion on soccer in America change following the big event that's happening here next year?
I couldn't tell you. I don't think Barron Trump, who's the main soccer fan over there, is going to change his opinion of liking the sport. But I do think that the entities that I've mentioned have to be a little careful that the fire hose isn't turned on them. As I said, U.S. soccer, 6-7 months from a World Cup on home soil, where we all know the political, cultural, social, visa, and everything else dynamics at play. I think we all know plenty of people who would do things differently if they had the opportunity, but they don't want to cross the White House and have the fire hose turned on them. And I don't entirely blame them.
Yeah, there's a whole shadow over all of this that is going to be interesting to see how it gets handled. I mean, some of the stuff you read, we're not going to read the reporting word for word, but some of the things that Pablo says he has multiple sources have confirmed Ernst Tanner said are abominable things, like atrocious beyond any, we're not talking about casual racism. We're talking about out and out racism and sexism and homophobia and all of it rolled in together. So yeah, John, appreciate the time. I mean, that's a difficult topic to get into, and with the MLS investing it again and the union silent, I guess we just sit and wait. Hopefully they drop something before you go on vacation.
The only thing I want to know, and I've poked at this a little bit, and I don't know that I'm going to have the time to go all the way in on it. The fact that there was an HR complaint about one of the things leads me to believe that that would have gone up a food chain that was not just the technical staff. And I would like to know who else knew about that, because that to me could indicate further things.
It seems to me that, again, you're dealing with the complicated interaction between the sporting element of this and, hey, this is a guy that helps us win games and helps us make money by selling our young, talented players that we've developed, that he helped develop, and how a business is supposed to work. And if HR's hands are tied because of the sporting concerns of the business of the Philadelphia Union, which is not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Other than that, the stuff we were talking about before this segment was even more in my wheelhouse.
Yeah,
So
well,
get back to that at some point.
we don't have time. We got to get to some other stuff, but I do appreciate. We'll get you back on for all of that at some point.
Yeah, Jonathan, interesting times that the man leading the decisions in this time where, roster decisions are supposed to be made. Interesting times indeed for the person to be making that, to be on leave. So I'm curious to follow along with your writing in the Philadelphia Inquirer to see how the Philadelphia Union navigates this very precarious moment they find themselves in. But thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kickaround, and try to enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend as best as you can.
Thank you, gentlemen. Jason, I'll
Thank you,
wave
John.
across the river from the Kennedy Center next week.
I might be there, but that depends on how FIFA responds to pending action on my part. So there's a chance I'll see you there, John. I might have to be the radio guy on site because as it is now, we don't have reporting live. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll see you there.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, John.
And as we come to our final segment of the day, got to put them on screen. Beef in GR. We have a new dot on the map. Thank you so much for becoming a member, good sir. You got good taste, and we're very happy to have you on board. And I'd love to wrap up the day with a 100% fun and exciting and positive story. But we're going to come right back with the big question. Why did the Pittsburgh Riverhounds not get a trophy celebration? That and more coming up on Morning Kickaround's Big Question here on Wednesday. Big question here on today's episode of Morning Kickaround. For the first time in their 26-year history, Pittsburgh Riverhounds crowned the USL Championship champions. And as the celebrations began and the broadcast left, one thing was missing: an actual trophy celebration. And it wasn't because they don't know how to do that. Just last week, USL 1 had, a standard, stage, confetti, trophy lift, the whole thing. But that was suspiciously absent from this weekend's game in Tulsa.
It was. So let's bring up a comment from an ultra and a guest on the show. Our friend Tom, Soccer Zombie, really thought the rushed USL Championship celebration was just because the CBS network window was closing. No idea it would be because USL would cut off its own nose to spite its face. In fact, Rob Kerr said the same thing to me, and he was confused when we were in our show chat. Like, was this not about the broadcast window? What are you talking about? And it seems clear, as confirmed by a number of outlets, people on the ground there in Tulsa, that's not what happened. Now, let's catch everybody up, Rob. For people who do not know what went down, it started with this, which is the players and fans supporting the idea of professional standards before pro rel, right? There's a current CBA negotiation happening between the USL Players Association and the league. And as we to understand, there's a bit of an impasse right now. USLPA on their social media posting images of fans who held up signs to support the players. Broadcast didn't show it, supporters did. Here is this. We do have this image of the players walking out with their t-shirts. USL HQ, pro rel, try pro standards first. Everything seems to be wrapped in this, that USL got a little in their feelings and upset and prickly about the fact that the players made a show about the CBA during the championship game on the broadcast. So there was no trophy lift on the stage. And you can see it here as, again, USL players have put on their Instagram. 2 finals, 2 leagues, 2 very different endings. The picture there of the USL League One Championship. So is that one Knoxville who won that title?
Yep.
Lifting their trophy with the backdrop, with the banner, with the USL League One final. There's confetti in the air, the magic of the cup. And then down there, the Pittsburgh Riverhound players holding up a trophy, but doing so on their own, on the field, et cetera, et cetera. 2 finals, 2 leagues, totally different endings. Last week, League One got the full trophy treatment. Stage, confetti, everything. This week, championship winners got none of it. even though all the ceremony materials were brought and ready on site. That is interesting to me. That's the detail that is like, whoa, you brought this stuff, you paid for the stuff and you didn't even use it? The league canceled the celebration because players wore shirts calling for better standards. A quiet United Stadium stand met with silence, but canceling the moment doesn't cancel the message. It proves it. So again, this seems to be USL saying, we don't like what you did. And so we took your toys away. You were bad, you were naughty, and you got your toys taken away. Right?
Yeah, that's insane, because that means during that game that I watched at home, the broadcast was great. CBS Sports, they treated it as a real thing. It wasn't, a halfway, production. It was a good production, great show, but it ended so weird. Just like Tom Soccer Zombie said, they went long and went to extra time, went to penalties. College football, that window was already late. So as they win the penalty shootout, the Riverhounds, they stream into the corner, into their fans. It's a jubilant celebration. I have, hairs on the back of my neck standing, like, what a moment. And then as they're kind of rolling the credits, the announcers, Mike Watts is, thanking everybody. They're wrapping up the show. And a USL official kind of just limp-armed, unenthusiastically just hands the trophy to a player and just walks off. And I thought, Tom, maybe they were just trying to cram it in that last 30 seconds, get a moment with the players and the trophy before they go to commercial. And then maybe the trophy lift is on a streaming network or something later on. But no, during that game, during that broadcast, the centerpiece, the biggest moment of the season in theory for USL, there was decision-making going on during that broadcast to be like, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We have the stuff, but we're not doing it. They don't deserve
all you're doing, USL, all you're doing is proving you don't have the professional standards that the players are calling you out on. You could have instead of this. Yeah, okay, maybe you're in a battle over the CBA, or you made all this noise and you're upset that they're raining on your parade on your biggest broadcast. But the better thing to do here is to take the high road. Right? The better thing to do here is to do all the pomp and circumstance to give the players their moment to make it look like this is a big time league. Because that's how you sell it to the fans. This is a big time league they should care about. Here's another picture from the USL players on Instagram. Pittsburgh player holding the trophy. Championship won, a moment these players earned. There was a celebration, but the way it was handled said a lot. No proper trophy presentation. We covered that. A chicken sandwich instead of a champagne moment. In the background of this picture, you can see a player carrying what looks to be to-go boxes of, I'm assuming, chicken sandwiches with the I don't know. This is Tulsa's baseball stadium, so I don't know exactly what they're allowed to do. But what would normally happen when a team wins a championship? What would a locker room look like, Rob? What would we?
In other sports, you see, champagne being sprayed all over everyone, music blaring, players dancing.
They tarp off the lockers. Everything's all the carpets all covered to protect everything. And they're saying, celebrate, boys. You just won the biggest trophy this league can offer. Celebrate like it's the best thing that's ever happened to you. Because you know why? Not only because it might be the best thing that's ever happened to you and you deserve that, you earned it, because it makes us look good as a league. You make us look like this matters to you. That's important to the USL. You're selling the USL. USL, oh, man.
Yeah, if this picture was them with their goggles on, getting doused in champagne, holding the USL Championship champions T-shirt and stuff like that, that would look a lot better than chicken sandwiches in a boring locker room.
Just, it looks like USL decided to piss into a headwind. I'm just going to say that. Just
before you read this, I think this is a good comment that kind of explains it good from Tom. USL could diffuse this by explaining why they did that, but the fact that they have not seems to corroborate the spiteful reports.
Yeah, if you do this and allow the USL players to set the narrative, and I have no reason to doubt the USL players. I'm not saying they're lying. Right? I'm not saying that at all. They're the only story out there. The USL isn't because they can't. Because it feels like they probably can't. Because what are you going to say? Yeah, we decided not to do the stage and the things that we did for the League One final because logistics. Because we were going to hurt the field there in Tulsa and the baseball team would have been mad at us, or because I don't know, like something broke. I mean, they're not, and I don't want them to lie, but they're not even saying that, right?
No,
because they probably don't have anything to lean on. They have nothing. This is Augustine Williams, plays for Pittsburgh. Now that my adrenaline of happiness is gone, the way they treated us on the day we became champions of the league is absolute bullshit. You do not treat champions that way. 26 years of no trophy, and we break it, and you celebrate us that way? Come on now. That's not professionalism. We worked really hard for that moment as players and teammates. I feel bad for Augustine. I feel bad for everybody involved in that Pittsburgh Riverhounds organization that gave everything they could to win that trophy, and then were treated like that. And again, like, I'm excited for what the USL is trying to do. I have enough. I'm wise enough in this game, Rob. I've seen enough. I've been in, you know, sorry to use war metaphors. I don't like them. They're sometimes icky, but I've been in the trenches, right, of these soccer wars. I've seen the battles go down. I've seen both sides annihilate each other. I'm cynical enough to know that this is not just about doing right by soccer. USL is not doing some magnanimous thing like, oh, we're going to fix soccer in America because it's the right way to do it. No, they're doing business things for business reasons, and it happens to be something soccer fans want to see. Promotion and relegation in this country, and have every right to go after first division status under the professional league standards as they exist. So I'm thrilled that they're taking these steps. We say dot the map. And who's dotting the map more than anybody else? USL is dotting the map all over the place. We get to talk about new teams almost every week. We get to talk about new stadium plans almost every week because of the USL, and I'm thrilled by that. But this is a massive misstep. And until they figure this out with the players, I just don't know how you're going to get to do all the things you're promising you're going to do.
Yeah, and that counterpoint, the logistics is absolutely a hogwash too, because Tulsa had a Western Conference Championship presentation stage on that field. So there's no possible way that logistics could have prevented the trophy raising there. And great point. And I'm not sure if in the actual negotiation room it'll give them any leverage, but in the public forum, having this is definitely leverage for the players, or at least as far as empathy goes, any more than they already had, so that they're willing to pull something. The league is willing to pull something off the table because they, you know, their feelings are hurt, or they felt like it was out of line in some sort of a way. And to your point, it's like, I would recommend viewers go back if you want to hear more. Our interview with Connor Tobin about a month or two ago, and every time I followed up, it seems like nothing has happened in the negotiations since then. So I think that's still current. So if you want to hear more from the players union, I'd recommend that Connor Tobin interview. But it is a little disappointing that this could have been a big moment, and it was. I mean, it was a big moment. National network television, great broadcast, entertaining game. Could have used the goals, but entertaining game, very dramatic. Came down to the last, and then the winners not treated as winners.
Again, just to reiterate how petty this is, it's not like the Pittsburgh players, and I don't think there was no indication that they were going to get on that stage and like rip off their jerseys and show the t-shirts from the beginning of the game and the walkout. That was a moment for them on camera to make a statement, right? I'm not saying that you can trust them entirely for the USL, but again, the smarter thing to do is to be as professional as possible, because you claim that level of professionalism. And if you act differently, you send the message that you're petty, that your cut rate, that you're lesser than, right? You don't look like, there's no way that the NFL, the NBA, Major League Soccer, the Premier League, any of them would change their plans because of a statement made by players, regardless of what that statement was. No matter how much they disagreed with that statement, they would not change their plans. That's how ridiculous you look right now, USL.
To be a fly on the wall when those USL executives were saying they don't deserve a stage. But interesting times in American soccer. The fun continues. The soccer wars continue. And we shall see how this all plays out. Before we get out of here, gotta say, tip of the hat, brand new member. I hope I'm saying this right. Hypatian Cat. But thank you for being on board. Brand new member, Cat. Thank you for coming and MK Ultra. And then from earlier in the show, Beef and GR. And so we got a pair of new members during the show. Thank you for hopping aboard. And then any new subscribers during the show, thank you for joining up too.
Yes, make sure you jump in. Well, I'll post the Discord again on the YouTube channel when I can. Today's very busy, but I'm going to do that. If you put your location in the Dot the Map channel, you will get dotted on the map, and we will share that again very shortly. But again, today's very busy, so I got to get out of here. But yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, we will be back soon, either on Friday or on Monday. But until then, everybody, enjoy your soccer. Thanks for being with us.